Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to CarMiZa. I know it's been a little while. Sorry for the delay. In this video, we're going to get further along in the trunk here and work on these side panels. I didn't get as much done as I had hoped in the video, but you'll be able to start seeing kind of how this shape began to take place and me building in this whole process. So let's go ahead and get things started, and thanks for watching. All right, so very briefly, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the design on what I need to do. But what I will tell you is I've been brainstorming about these side panels for a while. I know I've been talking about it forever. I'm sick of hearing myself talk about it. What I've done is come up with a list of different criteria, questions and things I need to figure out, and then different ideas that I've got. So from here, I just need to pick up some material and start getting to work and trying things. If I don't like it, I can redo it. But there's a lot to consider. Again, one of the biggest things is it's got to be symmetrical. They have to be symmetrical, and I'm thinking like as tight to the car as possible, just so that, you know, it kind of looks grandiose when you open the trunk. And again, in terms of being symmetrical, as we know already, I've got the gas filler over on this side. So I'm going to start, I think I'm going to grab some aluminum flat bar and start shaping that and putting it in place and figuring that out as my kind of my ribs, if you will, of the skeleton that I'll eventually transfer to plywood and then lay fleece over that. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, start things off, I need to define the shape. This is kind of what I'm thinking. As you can see, I just took a 1-inch strip of that cardstock paper I have and put it in there. I'll now transfer this to a piece of aluminum, 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch flat bar, bend it, and then if that looks okay, I'll continue, and that'll represent kind of the template for the back side of the ribs. Okay, got my piece of flat bar aluminum in there. Again, this is just going to be a template for the wood ribs. I kind of like that. I like the flow and everything. Now what I've got to be careful of is this bar gets in the way. That's why the car is kind of carved out here. So as I continue shaping these pieces, I need to account for that to make sure I'm not going to have a problem. So I'm going to just continue on. I'm thinking I'm going to make probably 4 ribs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I got to deal with this section. But the first thing I need to do is get past this, kind of cut this in half, just from a planning perspective. So, all right, let's go on and make the next template. One other quick thing, as I make each of these pieces, I'm gonna flip it over and put it in the opposite side. You know, I'm gonna start on the passenger side because it's the tallest and biggest, but I'll just put these in to make sure that they're gonna look good, because again, the whole thing should be symmetrical. I should be able to use these templates for both sides. So far, looks good. Okay, second rib template is in, and if you notice, I'm looking through the taillight hole. So again, just making sure I've got enough clearance for the trunk bars, the shock. Think of this as representing the backside of the rib again. So number 2 is done. I'll likely have to do something in between these two, but I'll deal with that later to form that pocket that you see. I'm gonna, again, basically just emulate what's going on here with this shape for the most part. Now we'll go on to the third piece and then continue on back here. Couple quick details I want to show. If you notice, I did a 1-inch marking all the way down here. I did the same thing on the other piece, and I've also indicated on here where my ribs are going to fall. So that's number 1, that's number 2, that's number 3. Did the same thing over here to make sure that the placement is consistent. Also, again, as I'm bending these, I'm dry running both sides just to make sure everything looks good. And you can see that one's going to be good as well for the trunk bar. Okay, rib number 3 is bent and in place. And again, I'm kind of imagining the shape that this will be when it's built out of fleece. All right, quick check on the driver's side fit. Everything's looking really good. I only made 1 set of these jigs, and the objective here is, again, the whole thought is that I'm going to make the side panels symmetrical. So I just took them off the driver's or passenger side, flipped them over, put them in here, and they're lining up at exactly the same point. And you can see everything lines up as it did on the passenger side. Now I've got to figure out these, kind of this area, which I have some ideas, but give me just a bit. Let me see what I can come up with. Okay, work in progress as I go here. If you notice, I just took a piece of that cardboard, thicker cardboard stuff, put it up in there. Thinking about something there. My first objective right now is just to get these pieces in place and get an idea of how this panel will be shaped. I like it. And I've been fighting with the design of what I'm going to do here. And I'm thinking what I'll do is this side panel will stop at the edge of this. And then there'll be another piece that I build that goes over here, which will be magnetic, and that'll allow me to pop this off to be able to service the taillights should I need to. So looking good so far. And now what I'm going to do is transfer all these pieces over to the other side, just double check, make sure everything looks okay and lines up the same. And here is the driver's side. Everything lines up very, very nicely. Look at the difference. It's pretty crazy. Now you can really kind of see the difference between the two sides. Number 2 and number 3 were right up against the side of the car. On the passenger side, you can see the difference there. So, all right. So this part is good. Now it's time to go on to the next part, which I have to figure out. Okay, I decided to make 2 sets of these just because I want to see what it looks like in a car before I get ready for the next step. And as you can see, I'm just bending them by hand, just using one as a template for the other, and coming out very nice, very much the same. Okay, it is Monday, a couple days later, or whatever, a day or two later. I had some stuff to do around the house. And I have all of these, the 5 pieces on each side done, bent, and in place. I think I mentioned that I've been really kind of struggling with this too. The shock tower cover repair, if you will, that was kind of challenging to figure out. This too, I've been still really struggling with the final shape. I've got some different ideas and kind of thought about different ways to do this. And then last night I was sound asleep, 2 o'clock in the morning. I had some ideas, started tossing and turning, got up and spent about an hour taking notes and kind of coming up with the ideas. And everything just kind of fell out of my head. Hopefully it's gonna all work, but let's see how it goes. I came up with some really cool things, probably once again, over engineering things, going a little crazy, but I think I've got this whole thing and even the integration into this near wall with the taillight covers kind of figured out. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about moving to the next step here now that I've got these 5 metal pieces in place. Okay, first thing I need to do is make sure that all these are vertical. I went through with the level and checked all of these and they're vertical. That's going to be important on the next step. Next, I went through and made sure that this piece, the base, is level. It does not have to be dead nuts accurate. It's just forming a right angle here, and you'll see why when we go to the next part. Next thing is I'm measuring basically the width of the base at each location. In other words, from the aluminum to this edge for all 5 of the pieces. Don't worry, I'm still making templates. This time it's going to be out of this cardboard. I figure I want to build everything out of this cardboard and then transfer it to the plywood. So here's what I'm going to do. This is square to the floor in the car, so I should be able to do this. Draw a line here, measure from here out to here, and that's going to be where the edge is on the floor. You'll see in a minute. Okay, so while I had my square in place, I had this piece. I drew the back side of this. That's going to represent kind of the line where the body of the car is. This 2 inches is going to bring me right to the edge of the base plate. Now what I'm going to do is determine this curve. This curve is basically going to be the other part of what will become my plywood rib. This curve is also going to dictate the shape of the finished panel. And this is kind of where I have some ideas. I don't know how this is going to go, but it's going to be, once again, a work in progress. One other thing here, I do know that I want to have a curve. Obviously, I have to have a curve to this. And I don't want this to be too straight for too long because then that's going to mean that this wall is very, consider it like perfectly vertical. And then when I go to do the pull floor, open that up and down, it's more that's going to rub as the floor moves back and forth. I just want the floor to set in here and then have this to be at somewhat of an angle. So again, it's in my head. You'll see it as we go. All right, next thing I did was take a piece of aluminum flat bar. This is 1/16 of an inch by 1/2 inch, which bends real nicely. And I made this curve. The curve doesn't have to be a perfect, radius or whatever. As long as I use this for all the pieces, I'll have a consistent bend, in that same range. The objective here is for this to be curved, right? Ultimately, when you look at it, I don't know if this is what I'm going to have as a finished piece, but this is what I want to start with. So now I'll take my pencil, trace it here, cut out that center piece, put it in the car, and then that starts to give me an idea as to where the rib will line up. The other two things I need to consider are the gas shock and the trunk bar. So when I do these, I'm going to have to put a small notch, just like I did on this backside here, but I want to try to mellow this out. This is too rough for me. It's too deep of a cut into this area, and there's like 3 inches between this bottom of this bar for the trunk lid and this bottom. BMW went crazy here, so I'm going to kind of mellow that out with this curve. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so there's my drawing of what the first rib could look like potentially. And again, this is just a side view of it. And you can see now this is not going to be perfectly vertical, right? You can see just at the very end is where the floor is going to lay in and fit. So let me go ahead and cut this, put it in the car, see what it looks like. All right, first piece is cut. Let's put it in the car and see what it looks like. Okay, interesting. As you can see, as predicted, the gas strut is pretty darn close. I'd have to just put a little notch in it there for the gas strut. Also, I don't know what happened with my measurement down there. I'm off by a little bit, but I do want to allow for the space for the fleece because I'm going to wrap this whole thing in fleece. I'm not really sure yet if I like that. Let's see the lighting, kind of get that light out of your face. That might give it kind of a cool, again, kind of curving it in and make it kind of dramatic. But I'm going to continue. I'll do the next one. In this one, I'll do the same thing with that piece of 1/16 of an inch thick flat bar, and I'll do the same curve. And I know for sure I'm going to I'll have to cut out a notch for the trunk bar. But to do that, I'll just slowly close the trunk until I see where it hits, and that's where I'll know to notch it. So let's go ahead and do that one. Same procedure here. Put my square, laid this out, drew my line. Now I measured from here to here. Let's see if I measure this one more accurately, and then we'll get that curve in there. All right, now when I went to do this line, I'm just basically taking this and just using this just to get a curve, just a slope. I actually had to open up the radius, which is good because I don't want this to be perfectly flat as you look at it. If you were to look at it from here, that's the whole point. There's going to be curves to this, which again, with the lighting, the lighting will accentuate it and cause shadows and things like that, which I think will look really cool. All right, so this is our next one. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, put it in there, and see what it looks like. By the way, if this is a total flop, this stuff's $1.25 at the dollar store, and I'm less than an hour doing this, maybe 30 minutes. So I got to do something to just get going and see what this thing will look like. All right, I don't hate it. Kind of cool. I haven't checked the trunk bar, but I'm sure it's going to be in the way. And again, not a problem. I can build a very mellow notch there. You notice the gap up here? Originally, I was thinking I was going to angle these up like this, but now I'm thinking that it's going to be better to go this way. But let's see how it goes. Little pro tip here. If you're going to be using this stuff, which I love, it's, again, I get it at the dollar store. It is, let's see if I don't have the name of it. I'll find it in a minute here and tell you what it is. It's $1.25 for like a 30 by 30 inch sheet, something like that. When you're cutting it, you want to make sure you don't cut it at an angle, because if you do, it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and that's going to screw up your dimensions. So you want to, if you're cutting something like this, you want to keep your cut nice and straight. That way there is no front and back, if you will. So hopefully that's helpful. Here's the stuff. It's called Ready Board. If you go to your local dollar store, and again, if you see it, snag as much of the white stuff as you can. They make white and then they make like a dark gray or black. I find the white a lot easier to work with. You can see your pencil lines and things like that. And they seem to run out of the white. All right, here's my metal pattern number 3. And I decided I can slide this over a little bit. And then instead of having to do this crazy curve, I just did that. And now, there we go. And this just needs to straddle. I need to make sure that obviously this is the high point. So I need to make sure that the fleece covers that. Again, I'm not 100% convinced this is what I want to do in the end, but it's actually going really quick and it works out quite well. This piece, this is basically just square and this is just a straight wall. I can just do a couple more of these and evenly space them and that part will be good. So I'll knock those out now. Lots of cardboard. What do you think? Imagine those are 3/4 inch plywood and then everything is wrapped in fleece. I think it's going to give a really nice curve along, like this edge, and it's going to kind of accentuate this line right here. All these lines and curves are really, really important, and I have this vision of what this thing, kind of like, again, like a big tunnel. It's got to have dimension and shape and look unique and kind of draw your eye in. And I think especially the way I'm going to curve these underneath, it's going to really do that, I think. So I'm a big fan. There is a lot to do. This just opens up. Okay, now I got a whole bunch of other things I need to consider. So real quick on some of the design aspect, this is just a proof of concept, right? And you can see those aren't perfectly straight. It's just to get an idea of the general shape. Am I going to like what this looks like? And again, you can see kind of the way that's going to go. I think it'll look really sharp. Nice subtle curves, won't be too hard to upholster. But some of the things that I'll need to consider, I'm going to have to bevel the top of this. I can't have a square edge here because when I staple it, I'll have kind of a weird jagged edge. So the objective from my experience doing like fiberglass with fleece is to get it as good as you possibly can and use the least amount of body filler and all that kind of stuff, because that can take a while. So that's just one thing. The other thing is I don't want to disrupt this edge because this was routed, right? Man, this thing is like a perfect edge. It lines up really good with this floor. Again, this is just my template for the aluminum, but I can't mar this edge. So one of the things I'll do here is I'll spray this with just some black spray paint so that I know if I start sanding and doing something, if I sand away the paint, I know I'm screwing up this edge. I'm going to build, you'll see it when I get to it, but this is one of the things I came up with at 2 a.m. last night. I'm going to cut a little chunk out of each of these, and then I'm going to build a piece of plywood that goes along the floor. That's going to be my leading edge for my fleece. I'll staple the fleece to the bottom of that, slip it in, and then put my fleece up and roll it around the backside. That way there are no visible staples here. And when I go to fiberglass it, I'll get a really nice clean edge, and I shouldn't have to mess with this, hopefully at all. So again, less with the jaw, more with the saw. So one of the other things I haven't even looked at yet is I need to do some gentle kind of notching in here for the trunk lid bar. That's pretty easy. I'm not too worried about that. But again, I think I'm feeling that whole edge. The other thing is the integration here. What I think I'm going to do is probably leave this piece. I've got more of these OEM pieces of plastic. I think what I'll do is probably leave it like this, and then this piece, I don't know, I'll probably stop my fleece right along this edge, and then I'll build another piece that goes kind of where my hand is here, that lays in here and is held in with magnets, neodymium magnets, and then that will allow me to get in here to be able to service the taillights if needed. So, all right, proof of concept, I would say, is a success. I got to do some more tweaks. Now I've got to sit here and do some more thought with all of the things that this now kind of brings up, right? I got to do an insert up top there, because when I upholster that, I'm going to upholster this piece in the car, and the carpet will basically be on here, and then the side panel will be carpeted outside of the car, fit in there. And the way that those two pieces are going to meet, hopefully there's little to no seam visible. So, all right, got to keep working on the design, but I'm liking it so far. One really quick thing, my daughter just came in the garage, and I like to get her opinion. She's very, very artistic. And I kind of, explained what was going to be happening here, showed her the curvature. It's almost going to like twist. See that, the way the curves are set up? And she said the whole thing reminds her of like an amphitheater. And that's pretty cool, because that's kind of the vision. I want it to be like, again, very artistic and kind of presenting, ultimately drawing your eye into the center where the millburts and all the stuff will be. So pretty cool. I'm totally digging this. Feel really good about it. Now I just have to go through again and work out the details. All right, I just spent about the last, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours going through and, taking notes and looking at everything I need to do. This, to give you an idea, this is all the things I've come up with so far. This is all the same day that, I worked on these cardboard templates, but that gives you an idea of the amount of thought and consideration I put into this. And even still, I run into things where I screw up, or I don't consider things and run into problems like the C1 changer fit, right? I had that issue. So that's going to be it for tonight. Tomorrow I'll be working on the car some more, and I think I've got a good handle on everything. I just want to check a few things and then basically lay out all the steps and start getting to work to really get these side panels completed. Okay, it is the next day, and as you can see, I just popped in the changers and the millburts just to get an idea again what this thing's going to look like visually. I went back through the design, kind of the elements of it that I'm slightly hung up on. The one thing I'm not 100% sure of is what I'm going to do with this. I think I may extend this another inch and a half, and I'll probably stop this rib here. And then when I do the taillight cover, it'll be a piece that goes in here, and then there'll be a carpet seam there and there, but hopefully you don't see it. This stuff, when you fluff it up, like there's a seam right there that you really can't even see. And this is really old and kind of a rough shape 30-year-old carpet. So I am good there. And then I went through all of my planning, my steps, just spent another hour or so going back through, figuring out kind of the order of operations. And I feel good about everything. So I am going to go ahead and pull the stuff back out, the millburts and the changers at least. Those are just real easy to get back out. And then I'm going to start out. The first thing I need to do is get the bases, kind of everything 100% with the bases, which is going to include their final placement and mounting the bases, which is ultimately going to mount the side panels. So let me get everything out and we'll talk about how I'm going to do that. All right, so the first thing I need to do, as I mentioned, is get the bases where they're going to be. It needs to be a kind of a predictable, repeatable process. Meaning when I put the panel in, I bolt it down and it goes in the same exact spot every time. Maybe there's a little tiny bit of adjustment, like a 1/16 of an inch, just if I need it. But effectively, it lands in the same spot every single time. That's been the case with all these pieces that I have built. So to do that with these bases and ultimately the side panels, here's what I did. I put in shims, as you can see there, that represent the thickness of the carpet as needed. In some cases, it's double layer carpet, so the carpet's 1/8 of an inch approximately for one layer, so a double layer would be a 1/4 inch. So I've got a 1/4 inch piece of MDF there, as you can see right there, and then there's an 1/8 inch piece of aluminum. And then I basically went around and did that everywhere that I needed it. And I even put an 1/8 inch shim on this piece, just to get everything placed where it's going to be. Then I also made sure that both the bases are level. That's going to play a role, again, when I'm using the square and basically building the plate, the ribs. So now all that's left to do on the plates, these base plates, is to mount them. And to do that, again, I need to consider the way that this is all going to be put together. So let me grab one of the ribs and I'll show you what I'm doing there. Okay, I literally just set this in just to show you guys, but that's approximately where rib number 5 is going to go. That's the end rib, and this base is going to still be there. When I do the fleece, it's going to come over like this, and it'll stop right at this edge. So basically, this will be visible and available, right? That little section right here. And again, I'll have the taillight cover here, which will be magnetic. I'll be able to probably just grab onto the carpet and pop that off and then get to this bolt. There will be only one bolt holding in the side panels. Other than that, it's going to be a pressure fit up there, and the rest of it's basically going to kind of, you know, it's going to be tucked up underneath that lip or right up against that lip. So I'm confident it'll stay in place. It's going to be, you know, a bit heavy too by the time I'm done. So it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to just put one bolt here, and I'm going to use a furniture bolt, 1/4-20, and then I'll do a threaded insert into the body of the car like I've done elsewhere. I've already checked to make sure fuel tank starts up here, so I'm plenty clear of that. I'll triple check, but that'll be the next step, and then we'll go ahead and get these bases bolted in and mounted. Quick funny story for you. It is 8 days later. I have not touched the BMW. I can make excuses again, but life got in the way and all of that. One of the things that happened also was I sent Earl pictures of this side here and said, this is what I'm thinking, and kind of explain what I was going to do. He misunderstood what I had described and said, that's going to look terrible. I don't like that. You know, I thought you were going to do like extend this line and do that kind of a thing. So then I started over with the design and basically said, all right, what if I did that and I redo the floor and extend the line this way? But if I do that, the floor becomes giant, like way bigger than it would be, and it's not going to look right. So I got really frustrated, stepped away for a few days, and then I asked Earl to come over, and he came over. And when he did, I had this setup, which is kind of like the plan B, if you will. And then I had the original setup in here. He comes over and I say, all right, so let me show you what I got here. This was the original design, and this would all be covered in fleece. And as soon as he looked at it, he said, that's what you need to do. That's exactly the look. He kind of, a couple of things, I think, misunderstood the way I was going to lay things out. And he said the perception, the angle, and the way it was going to look when he saw it in person compared to on video or in a photo was drastically different. So it looks good. I'm confident with it. So moral of the story there is we're going to continue with this design. So what I'm going to do at this point is before I go further, you know, obviously I was just a moment ago, I was talking about mounting these bases. Before I do that, I'm going to do a final mock-up with these pieces of foam, which I would have done later anyway. These were just kind of rough cut. I was going to do them a little bit cleaner. I'm going to do that on both sides because I don't like, for example, see the way it curves behind the Milbert? I kind of like on that one, something more like that, where I've got more parallel lines. So I'll go ahead. There are 5 of these per side. I'll go ahead and get those completed and then come back to the video. And then from there, I should be able to continue back to where I was with the bases and go from there. So, all right, hang tight. Let me go cut a bunch of cardboard. Okay, the passenger side, as you may know, is larger than the driver's side. So this one is the one I'm starting with. This is my final answer on these cardboard templates. So as you can see, I've got number 1, and I've kind of tucked that in there because I like the way that's going to, see that, the way that's going to line up. And also it allows you to see still that the shock tower is curved. I really wanted to preserve that. This will also cause the fleece to go in there, and I'll do a little bit of a sculpted contour right there. I've also notched out for the shock tower rod. There's going to be a trim piece that goes over that. The hole will be much smaller where the rod comes through. And then I also carved this out to allow for the trunk bar. This is going to, it looks kind of ugly now, or maybe tough to imagine, but I'm confident that this is going to, when I attach the fleece in here, that's going to give me some really cool sculpture to this, like a little pocket. I may need to run some cleats kind of along inside there, but I'm confident that that'll look good. So now I'll transfer this cardboard over to the driver's side and be done with cardboard. So let me go ahead and knock that out. All right, there we go. Cardboard done. You can see, again, if you can imagine the way that's going to look, you'll get an idea of the general shape. So I'm going to change up the order a little bit too. I was going to do the base, mount the bases to the car next. In this video, I want to be able to show something pretty tangible. So I am going to next go ahead and cut all of the ribs out of plywood. So this is going to wrap up what I'm doing tonight. So tomorrow night we'll reconvene. And I will get, you know, the jigsaw table set up and be able to get to cutting these ribs. So have a good night for tonight. See you tomorrow. Okay, it's actually the day after the next day. I had some stuff come up last night I had to attend to. So we are getting ready to cut the ribs. So I've got my little drum sander thing here set up. This is going to allow me to do the interior curves and kind of sand those and tweak those as needed. I also have my giant disc sander right here that I'll use to do certain edges as I need. Yeah, my finger is taped up with Tessa tape, by the way. For those of you who may have noticed, I slammed it in the dishwasher. It hurt like hell and my fingernails falling off. It's pretty gross. So let's keep that covered. The other thing I'm doing, I'm using the old piece of plywood, the extra plywood from when I did the bases. Here's a cool little pro tip. So I've got my template out of cardboard, and these again don't have to be exact. I'm going to cut this oversized, and then I'll use all these amazing sanding tools to get it really kind of dialed in. But here's kind of a cool little thing I wanted to show. If I put this down like this and try to minimize waste, right? And I go and do a pencil around here. This is kind of flimsy. See this? So it can move 1/4 of an inch, no problem. That's gonna really screw up the shape. So what I've done, this one I've already taken off. I got a couple pieces of double side tape that I'll put on, lay this down, and then be able to trace it to really ensure that I've mimicked the same shape. So you guys have seen me cut with a jigsaw. It's pretty straightforward. Let me go ahead and get this one cut, shaped, and I'll show you what it looks like in the car. All right, not bad. There's number one. I did a little bit of sanding and tweaking just to, you know, kind of clean up the edges a little bit. The inside edge obviously does not have to be perfect. That's just sitting against the car. It's this outside edge right here that's going to dictate the shape. But I like it. I do see where I'm going to have a challenge attaching this one to the floor. More on that later. We'll deal with that later. But it looks good. I tried this one on the opposite side over there. And it's really, really close. It's probably within 3/16 to 1/8 of an inch of being like a perfect fit. But the car is not perfectly symmetrical, as we know. So the obvious goal here is to get the shape symmetrical when we're done. So I was thinking maybe I could use a flush trim bit, knock out one side, just flush trim it and bring it to the other side, but I can't do that because of the differences in the car. But looking good. All right, let's go on and do number 2, which is a little more gnarly, and see how that fits. All right, you guys have seen me cut stuff. Nothing crazy to this, but I figured I'd show it because I'm not showing a whole lot of me working in this particular video. So with that, let me go ahead and, as you can see, I rough cut most of this, but you can see the line there where I still need to cut that out. This stuff is a, I believe it's a birch plywood I picked up from Home Depot. Not cheap, and it's like a 7-ply or whatever, 3/4 inch, but it cuts with a new blade and this amazing jigsaw I've got. It cuts like butter. I mean, you actually gotta pull the saw back and really keep it slow. I've got it down to a slower speed, just because otherwise it'll just fly right through and you'll go past your line. So, all right, here we go. I've mentioned this before. I've got this little curved piece, but I use this piece of scrap that's got a hole in it, and I'm just straddling this over the hole, and it makes it easier to cut, more stable. And there I've got basically the tightest part, so I'll just work up to that from the other end. So you get the idea there. Let me go ahead and get this cut, then I'll show you how I'm sanding this and getting it to fit. All right, so again, hopefully you guys can see the line here. The lighting is kind of crazy because it's really bright out, but you hopefully could see my pencil line. So I stayed within, you know, I went a little bit over, maybe 1/8 of an inch or so, and this looks like crap, right? It does not look good. The line is pretty jagged. Now what I'm doing is I've got my line, but I'm flipping it over, and by eye, I'm making sure I've got a nice good edge on it, right? You can see where it's kind of jacked up there. So I'll basically just use this little belt sander thing, this disc sander, and the piece you saw in the drill press, and just get the shape. The first thing I'll do is the inside so that it goes in and it fits into the car properly, and make sure that is good. So to that point, let me go ahead and show you what I'm doing here on this disc sander to get these edges. I'll do as much as I can with this. Anywhere I can't reach because of the inside edge, I'll use the drill press. Got a bunch of sawdust in my mouth. I'll use the drill press for that. This too, I'll make sure I'm square here. I'll put a square on it, but just hitting this with the sander. Pretty straightforward. So, all right, let me continue working on this. We'll see what it looks like in the car. All right, this is a pretty basic setup. I got just a 2-inch little drum here. Couldn't find my original one. It's somewhere over there in my mess of tools, so I had to order one off Amazon. The only one I could get today was this really cheap one, and it wobbles like crazy, but it'll get the job done. So I'll show you what I'm doing here. Again, on these, you can see on these inside lines here. See where I ran this part right here on that disc sander. Got a nice edge, but I've got to clean up in here and in here, which I'll do next. So if you do these, by the way, I cut it's a 2-inch sander, and then I cut a 2 1/8 hole into the piece of wood, which you can hear the thing rubbing, so it's not perfectly square, which is okay again. So here we go. This is an 80 grit too, in case you're wondering. It doesn't chew it up really fast. I have the drill press on a really low speed intentionally, just so I can work it. The important thing here is to just keep it nice and square. The sawdust is getting me tonight. And just make it look like a 3-year-old didn't cut it, so you can see a much better cut there. So again, I'll do the same thing in this area, and then we'll go ahead and see what it looks like in the car. All right, so as you can see there, I haven't tried it in the car yet, but I'm just worried about this inside edge. Just again, not looking all nasty and jagged. It's pretty nice and smooth. Now we'll put it in the car. Let's actually go ahead and do that. And we'll take a look to see where it's gonna hit. And you can always cut more, can't cut less, right? And then chances are this won't fit. If everything goes as planned, this shouldn't fit, because I should need to, I'm gonna pull this shim out. Just double side taping on one sec. Okay, I was trying to do that with one hand, it wasn't gonna work. So what I was saying was it shouldn't fit, because if things go as I had planned, I cut it a little bit big, so I should have to sneak up on it, and that's all I'm doing here. So I can see where it's hitting at the top. I'll continue to sand it. It could take 8 or 10 tweaks before I get it. You know, that's what I had to do with the number 1. So I'll keep doing that. This is sticking out too far here, and I've got a gap here. So again, it's just a matter of tweaking it with the sanders and getting it to fit. So I'll go ahead and get it done. All right, bib number 2 fits good in the car. Now I've got to go through and again, tweak this exterior edge, get that really the way I like it. And we'll keep going. Looking good though, I like it. All right, got number 2 tweaked. I may have a little bit more to do here. Again, I can always cut more. I'm also using my level, just a little small level, just to make sure when I put it in there, that I'm leveled this way, and also even ensured like that. This should be vertical in my opinion, because that's going to be basically the line where the hood rod or the trunk rod area comes down. So I think it'd look cool if that's perfectly vertical, and it is with the level. So all of that looks good. Now I'm going to go on to these, which there's some items I got to figure out here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. Passenger side is done, and it's not even quite dark out. All right, so here's some things I've identified. If you notice, I want about 1/4 of an inch of a gap here, because I'm going to staple the fleece. These are just sitting, obviously. Staple the fleece to these, and then it's going to come down. I think I'm going to do also kind of a cleat along the bottom here that I'll staple to as well. I'll figure that out. I got some ideas on that. But I'm also going to have to bevel some of these. So if you notice this, what I want is for this to kind of look like it's curving as it goes around here to kind of mimic this curve, right? So it's all kind of sculpted. That's why this one sticks out further than this one, because of the curve. But when I staple the fleece, I don't want to have like squared off edges. So these two should be fine. This one, again, if you can imagine the way the fleece is going to go, I may just have to knock down, you know, the front edge of that, which is fine. I'll just do that with a little palm sander. So for now, I think this side is good. Now what I'm going to do is do all of the ribs for the other side, which I might be able to flush trim some of these, but let me go ahead and take a look at that and give it a shot. But so far, I'm really liking it. I like the way the shape is going to look, I think. And again, what I can do is one other quick design thing. I am going to use machine screws, as I always do, and threaded inserts into these ribs. So I'll be able to, you know, bolt the ribs to the floor, this base, and then I'm going to just wrap the whole thing in fleece to take a look at it. Maybe just put a few staples in here or there, just to get an idea of the shape. If I don't like it, I can take these off. If I want to square these off or, you know, do something different, I'll be able to do that. So again, that's the beauty of using machine hardware and not permanently affixing, like, you know, using staples to attach these, or welding. When I did the shock tower covers, that's why I did all those bolts, because obviously I needed to go back in and, you know, open it up for the changers, for example. So, all right, let's take a look and see how this is going to go into the driver's side. Quick, interesting little tidbit here for you. These are, I was just outside and I had my headlamp on, and I'm cutting outside because I've got my E55 in the garage and I don't want to uncover it yet. I'm going to a car show with it first thing in the morning at Cars and Coffee. So I figured I'd leave the cover on it and I'll blow any sawdust I get, you know, off the cover. And then get the car, I'll detail it out in the morning before I go to the car show. So I'm out there, you know, my sawhorses, and I'm like, oh, I need a headlamp. And I'm like, wow, I'm getting really crazy here. I'm outside working in the dark. I thought of something and I just want to share this. I thought this is pretty cool. These are pictures of the dashboard I built 20 years ago for this car. This was a white 525i. I bought it 25 years ago. Car was in really great shape, and my whole goal, this was long before I owned CarMiZa, was to replicate what Earl had, or, you know, do my best to. So this is going back, I looked at one of the pictures just a moment ago. It was March of 2004. So quite a while back. This dashboard I built, I got it finished. I started to upholster it, never got it finished, but I thought about this and I wanted to show you something cool. So here's me doing some of the work in the garage, but you can see the fiberglass work. You notice this right here. I thought of this and I'm like, I wonder if I have this picture. If you look at this picture, you can see out there, there's snow on the ground. This was my shed at our house in Saratoga, New York. I still remember I needed a fiberglass and my kids were young. At the time we had our son and our middle child, our middle daughter, and could not, you know, the wife says no fiberglass in the house. It was a real small house and all that because of the smell. So I took my salamander heater at 11 o'clock at night, dragged it through 2 feet of snow to our shed to heat up the shed to be able to get the temperature up to be able to do fiberglass resin on the dashboard. So this is how long and how hard I've been chasing this dream of getting this sound. So I thought that was pretty interesting, pretty cool little story. All right, back to building these ribs. I'm not done. I came up with something better. If it's not precision, keep going until it is, right? So All right, here's what I've got now. Here's some of the changes I did. Pretty straightforward work, so I didn't bother recording it. I added a 1/8" aluminum spacers back behind this first rib because the shock tower cover will be carpeted. When I carpet the side panel, I'll cut the carpet flush with that edge, and then when I stick that in there and kind of fluff up the carpet, you'll likely really won't see the seam. It'll look really nice, I think. I added a third piece to this area. And then I did this, which I really like. Hopefully you guys like this. I sent a video of this to Earl. He liked it. So let me show you from the top here. So what this is going to do is basically follow the same curvature of the floor. And this is going to bend up like this. And if you notice, I've got a gap right here. I'm going to build a separate piece that fills in here and contours to the car here, and then goes right up along this edge and then along the floor there. This piece will be removable. It'll just pop out and allow me to service the taillights as needed, right? So I can get in there. I'll basically just pull the bolts out and pop the taillight out if I need to. I might even be able to take this piece and extend it to this all as one piece. I got to see because of I don't know if it's going to fit in the way I want, but either way, I can do a separate little filler piece here. And when I do the carpet, I'll basically have these pieces in, upholster over everything, and then do my cuts after in the carpet, and you likely wouldn't be able to see the seam. So I think that'll be pretty cool. So, all right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. I know I didn't get nearly as much done as we hoped. I was hoping to be able to get this whole side panel, both side panels, like done in this video. Not the case. This is turning into a little bit more work than I had thought, but I'm very, very happy with the results. That's what it's all about. So in the next video, I will definitely make more progress. We're going to talk about getting these mounted to the base, get the base mounted to the car. And then I've got to do basically some fill-ins along the top to basically create a line, like a defined line there, which is where the fleece will wrap over. And then also do a fill-in in this area right here. So more to come on that, but that should be it again for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and tell your friends. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.